GIS Day. This is the third session of today and talking about GIS and DCR's use of the bird harassment program. We also have one more webinar tomorrow at 10 a.m. with MAPC, so feel free to register if you haven't already. If you have any questions, please use the chat feature or the Q&A feature. I'll be monitoring that as we go, and we'll come around at the end. In chat under the two, please make sure to hit all panelists and attendees so everyone can understand the question that we're answering. And thank you to Erica Teff from DCR, who is the GIS coordinator, and I will let her take it away. And thank you again for being here.
Thank you, Melissa. As she mentioned, I am the GIS coordinator for DCR's Division of Water Supply Protection. So we are the part of DCR that deals primarily with the conservation portion. So we manage the land adjacent to the Wachusett and the Quabbin reservoirs, and also in the Ware River watershed and in the Sudbury watershed. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about how we're using GIS in our bird harassment program. To start, I'm just going to kind of talk about what the bird harassment program is. Okay. So the Quabbin and Wachusett reservoirs are both unfiltered water supplies serving Metro Boston, which is about 3 million people. So the bird harassment program helps us keep our water clean. During the winter months when smaller water bodies freeze over, birds like gulls and geese and ducks like to roost and spend their time sitting on the reservoirs because they're still open water and not frozen. This, as you can imagine, results in lots of contaminants and bacteria in the water, which is not good if you are a unfiltered public drinking water supply. So our bird harassment programs are designed to actively harass and move these birds off of the reservoirs and away from the intakes at each reservoir. We accomplish this through a use of pyrotechnics, lasers, and watercraft. At the Wachusett Reservoir, our program runs from September until the reservoir freezes over, and then it resumes in the spring, maybe in March when the water is open again, and it goes until about April. And this just helps keep our water clean. Now, what this presentation is going to primarily focus on are our regional gull surveys. These are conducted by our biologists in our natural resources section. And initially, these surveys started out as a way to gauge how much food gulls were getting from people in our watersheds and how often they were being fed by people in our watersheds. And as these surveys went on, the biologists realized that visiting these locations gave a good idea of the total number of birds that were in our watershed, and it related fairly well, especially in Wachusett, to the number of birds that we were seeing in the roost, or the area on the reservoir where the birds would spend the night. We have a pretty extensive education program around birds and feeding gulls and water quality in our watersheds. And since we've started these education programs, it has helped to reduce the overall number of birds in the watershed and on the roost. So we're seeing that this is successful. If you go to this website, I just highlighted in a purple box, you can get some more information about the bird harassment program and a gull study that we performed in our watersheds. So this specific project goal had a few elements. So the first was that we wanted to enable our biologists to have one location that could have many observations collected at that location. So for instance, they wanted to be able to go to the Walmart in Northborough over and over and over again and associate those surveys with that one location. They wanted to be able to quickly and easily collect their regional gull survey data for many locations throughout central Massachusetts, and they wanted to eliminate paper-based workflows. In the past, these data were collected on paper worksheets. They might have to enter that information into Excel or into ArcGIS. And it just took time, re-entering data you've already written down. Next, we wanted to be able to automate the process to calculate our total gull count from individual species counts. So when the biologists are out there, they're recording the number of individual gull species that they're observing. but we want to be able to really just tally up the total amount of gulls and be able to work with that number. Finally, we wanted to be able to develop a live dashboard that would display these regional survey data for better decision making and make that available to all DCR staff that participate in the bird harassment program. So to do this, we use a few different things. So on screen right now, you can see our field equipment. So all of our biologists are equipped with an iPad and a Bad Elf GPS Pro Plus. So this allows them to have access to an app called Collector, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit. The GPS allows them to get accuracy from 8 to 10 feet, depending on tree cover, and it allows them to collect their data remotely. And the big app that we use to do this is called Arcgis Collector. It's part of Esri's ArcGIS Online suite, and it is a premium app. It is a map-centric data collection interface. So as you saw on the previous slide, it's based on a map and data in your map. It allows you to collect new data, or you can edit existing data. It's really great because it works online or offline. And what that basically means is if you are going to be working in New Salem, for instance, and you know that there's no cell reception, you can prepare by downloading your map to work offline, and you don't have to worry about having cell service. If you are working offline, all of your edits are saved directly to your iPad, and then you sync them later when you're back in your office or when you have good cell service again. Collector is also really great because you can connect to a Bluetooth GPS receiver like that Bad Elf that I just mentioned for increased accuracy. So inherently, your iPhone or your Android phone or an iPad has a data accuracy of about 30 feet. By using the GPS, like the Bad Elf, you can increase that accuracy from to 8 to 10 feet. There are also high accuracy receivers like the Era 100 GNSS receiver, which can get you sub-foot accuracy. Now, one thing that our biologists wanted to be able to do was to have that one location and have many surveys or inspection records to go with that location. So as you can see down here in the bottom right corner, this is kind of how our data set was designed. So we have a point layer with many different gull observation locations. I actually think we have 118 different locations that we survey at. Associated with that point layer are these two tables, and these only collect tabular data. We have our site inspections or our regional surveys, and then we have our site work, which basically allows biologists to say, okay, our signs were torn down, we need to put up new signs, stuff like that. So this, one point in our observation locations could have 15 surveys at it and 3 site work records associated with it. So this is called a one-to-many relationship. So I took actually a video of what the workflow looks like. So I'm going to just play that and I'll talk over it a little bit as it goes. Okay. So this is opening Collector. This is our map. You can pan and zoom in and out. I'm going to click on the Northborough in Walmart, or the Walmart in Northborough, and I'm going to zoom right in on that. You can see that we've got aerial imagery as our background. I'm looking at all the different site inspections that have taken place. This is the most recent on October 22nd. I can view what was collected, and then I can add a new inspection or a new regional survey. So I can select the date. And then you can go through and you can enter in the attribute information that you want to record. So you can see that you can set this up so that there are pick lists, like what you're looking at now, or you can manually enter in information like I did with my initials. Now we'll just enter in the numbers, and this is just kind of a sample. This is a fake one, didn't know. So right now, I'm gonna enter in some comments, and then when I hit submit, this new regional survey is going to be sent up to the cloud and stored data immediately. If I was working offline, this would be stored on my iPad, and then I would have to manually send it to the cloud when I was back in an area with good cell service or in an area with Wi-Fi. Oops, sorry. So the next step that we talked about was automating the total goal count. So this is something that I did using the Arcgis API for Python and Arcgis notebooks. Python is a scripting language that's utilized by Esri products. You can run it in your desktop GIS, or you can run it in the cloud using ArcGIS notebooks. It's a pretty new technology in the cloud, but it's very powerful. And I'm going to show you why just very, very quickly. For anybody that's interested in Python or maybe getting to know it a little bit better, there's something called Code Academy, and it's a free online academy where you can learn different coding languages, and Python is one of those. It's also possible to find what you want by searching the internet. I'm definitely not a Python master by any means. I'm very much a novice, but using resources like GeoNet, which is Esri's online user-to-user platform, you can pretty much find examples or samples of what you need and then tailor it to your specific project. And that's generally what I do. I find and then reuse other people's code. So I guess I'm kind of like a gull in that way, scavenging and using code. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly run through what this does because it is a pretty nice addition to this whole workflow. So what this basically does is it ensures that our field called unknown goal count is always set to 0. And then it ensures that our total goal count is calculated by summing up our individual species and our unknown species counts. So this is what an ArcGIS notebook looks like. You can develop it in ArcGIS Online. It's nice because each of these are called cells and you can run them interactively. So as you develop your code and you're testing it, you can see immediately whether it works or not. It's really interactive and it's iterative. So basically the way this works is this first box here is importing our GIS tools and our Python libraries. So it's saying these are the tools that I'm going to be using throughout this notebook. Next, I connect to my ArcGIS Online organization and I pass in my credentials. This would be your username here and this would be your password. I've taken those out for security reasons. Next, I am saying I want to work with this specific layer. So this unique ID right here points to my layer in ArcGIS Online. And then over here, I'm basically saying I want to find all records where unknown number is null or blank. And once I find those, I want to take those null records and I want to just calculate them to be equal to 0. And the reason we do this is because you cannot calculate your total goal count on with a null value. So if unknown number was null, my total goal count wouldn't calculate properly. So now all I'm doing is I'm finding all my rows where total goal count is null. And I'm saying I want that to be equal to the ringbill goal number, herring goal number, and blackback goal number plus my unknown number. And it will calculate that for me. So this script actually runs once an hour for all time. So as our biologists go out and they collect new data, that script is going to be running on an Amazon Workspace task manager task every hour. And as data comes in, it will calculate that and make sure that the total goal count is always up to date. So the final piece of this was display. So we want to be able to display and visualize all of these surveys that our biologists are collecting, and we want to use that for planning purposes. So what you're looking at right now is a screen capture of our dashboard. And this was built in ArcGIS Online using their dashboards tool. It was formerly known as Operations Dashboard. So if you've heard of that, they're now branding it as just plain old dashboards. So this is near real time. Like I said, the data is updated every hour. So whenever the biologists do go out and do new surveys, this will be updated. So what I actually wanted to do was run through some of the configurations behind this. So what I'm going to do is bring up my web browser. Now, can everybody see that? Melissa, is this coming up okay?
Yes, oh good.
So this is the live version of the dashboard. So we're going to start here. So what we'll do first is we'll click, and you can see there's a pop-up, and it will tell you the number of individual species and the total count. So here, you know, we only had ring-billed gulls. There were 35. That's the total count of gulls. If we click up in one of these places, you know, same thing, nothing spectacular. All of these little green squares represent our sampling survey locations. What you'll notice now is if I zoom in on the map, you'll notice that these numbers are changing. So they're dependent on my map extent. So as I go in, things change even more. We're just going to zoom way in, and you can see that it will change to aerial imagery. And it kind of gives you a better idea of the location, what's going on. So this looks like a pretty big shopping complex of some sort. Next, we can also see down here, we have a few different graphs. So we can, as time goes on, over the winter, as our program runs, each month we'll have a tally of the number of gulls observed throughout the central region. This is looking at the maximum count of gulls at any survey location. So in October, the maximum count that they saw at any location was 35 birds. Okay. So I'm going to go over to my next tab, and we're going to kind of start at the beginning. So this is the map that is in my dashboard, and it powers my data. So what I want to show you first. So this layer, gull observation survey locations. I open my table. This shows you the town and the site name. So these are those 118 survey locations that I mentioned. So for instance, this location in Sturbridge, it has 5 related records. So if I wanted to see those 5 surveys that have taken place, I can click, and I can see the dates on which those were taken. This right here is our parking lot surveys. So this is actually where all those regional survey data is stored. Now, when you're getting ready to display data in a dashboard, displaying data it requires that it has a spatial component. So it has to have a point or a line or a polygon to be able to display in a map. Now, the tricky part is that our survey data is stored in a table. So to be able to visualize on that data, I have to somehow join the data that's stored in here to my survey locations. And then I can symbolize and display my data on the information in that table. So what I'm going to do is show you a tool called the Join Features tool. So I'm going to come over here to Analysis. And this opens up the different analysis tools that are inherently available through Arcgis Online. This is kind of a slimmed down set of tools compared to what you would find in your desktop GIS, but it makes them no less powerful. So under Summarize Data, we have this tool called Join Features. And if you click the info button, it will just kind of show you what it does. So Join Features transfers attributes from one layer or table to another based on spatial and attribute relationships. Okay, so I'm going to open this up, and we're going to go through what's going to happen here. So my target layer is going to be gull survey locations, and my join layer is going to be my parking lot surveys. I'm going to come down here, and I want to choose an attribute join. So I'm going to choose some fields to set my join, set it up on. So these are the fields available within my survey location table. I'm going to select global ID. This is a unique ID that's auto-generated by ArcGIS. Now these are all the fields that are in my regional survey table. And here, I'm going to select inspection ID. Now, when I developed this data, I set it up so that each time a new inspection was completed, the global ID from my location layer was copied into my inspection ID of my survey table. And that just ensures that there's a relationship between the two. And that is what defines how they're related to one another. Okay, so as you go through these tools, they have info buttons throughout that will help you decide how to set your parameters before you run the tool. So I'm going to set up a one-to-one join, and I want to keep the newest visit date. So for instance, if I went to, let's see, what do we have here? Nope. If I went to this Barton Cove in Turner's Falls yesterday, but then I also went today, it would only keep today's record in my join. It's always going to keep the newest regional survey. So what I would do if I wanted to complete this is, I'd give it a name and I'd run my analysis. But I've already done this, so I'm going to close out of that. And what we have here is the result. So you can see that I have my site name, I have my most recent record, and the table goes all the way across, and we have all of our information. So what it really comes down to is just configuring your map and then saving it. So that's what I've done. One thing that is worth mentioning, so we see this like heat map that I have on here. So that is this right here. And when you set this up, I'm choosing to map based on my total goal count. So as more surveys are completed, this scale will dynamically adjust to the total number of goals that have been seen. So like right now, our highest observation is 35 goals, which isn't really that high, but you can see where that 35 goals was observed. That's kind of like the highest, brightest location. But if somebody came, back to Gardner and saw 150 goals, the whole look and feel of this heat map would change based on that new value, that new high value that's been collected. Okay, so this is the last component. So this is our dashboard. So I wanted to just run through quickly a few different configurations and how to make some of this stuff work. So as a breakdown, when you're working in your dashboards, you can come up here and you have all these different types of elements that you can add. So in the dashboard that we're looking at now, I utilize indicator elements, which are all along the left-hand side. I utilize pie chart, and I utilize serial charts, which can be either bar or line graphs. Okay, so let's go into the configuration of a few of these. So we'll start here. So I'm going to hit configure. And what I'm saying is, okay, I'm looking at my goal observation survey locations layer, and I just want to show the count of unique features that are in that layer. There are also other options. They're not appropriate for this data, but you have average, max, min, sum. I can tally over here to the indicator tab, and this is what controls what you see on the indicator itself. You can change the color, you can type in values. If you wanted to have an icon, you can pick your icon. We'll just pick this. And I'm going to hit cancel because I don't want to save any of this. So indicators can be very simple. They can also get a little bit more complicated if you want them to. So for instance, this percentage, surveyed sites with goal activity. Let's come in here. So we can see now our data is coming from our parking lot surveys. So this is that table that was in the map I just showed you. So I've added a filter here where goal activity is equal to yes. So filters allow you to build a query based on any of the fields that are stored within your table. So if I hit this drop down, I have all the different fields in that table to choose from. And then these are the options that are associated with that field: yes, no, or unknown. Okay, so again, we have our statistic as count here. And I've come down and I've said, okay, I want to look at parking lot surveys where my visit date is after September 1st. That's basically the first day of our bird harassment season here. Now under indicator, what we've done here is this middle value. So it could be the value, which would just be a count, or you can come down. So what I've done is a percentage. So what it's doing is it's basically dividing the number of surveys where gull activity was yes by the total amount of surveys after September 1st, 2020, and multiplying it by 100 to give us this percentage. Now, one other thing that you've noticed probably is as I zoom in, some of these change, right? Unique survey locations, total gulls, the number of times the gulls were feeding during a survey. So this is controlled not through the indicator itself, but by the map. So if I come in here, you know, I can say if I want a legend or not on my map. The general functionality of the map is controlled here. There's something called map actions. So what I've done here is I've added 3 different map actions. So when the map extent changes, it filters these indicators. If I wanted to add a new target, like if I wanted my graph to change based on my extent, I could add a new filter for that, and it would change what the graph looked like when I zoomed in and out. I actually don't want to do that, so I'm going to just X out. Lastly, I'm just going to show quickly the configuration of a graph. So come in here. Okay, so my category is visit date. I want to show ultimately the number of birds per month. So I have to have a date associated with it. I'm going to tell it that I want to break down those dates and group them into months. And then I want to show the sum of the total gull count field. So we could change this too. This could go to day. So on this day in October, there were 88 gulls that were observed. Now, as you go through your chart, you can determine if you want it to be horizontal, vertical. You can add titles to your axis. Something like that. You can change how you want your axis values to look. Now, if I come over my value axis, this says my total number of gulls. You can already see that on my chart. If I go down to series, this is where I can say, okay, well, I want it to be line or bar. You can control hover text. So if I hover over this, it will show me information, but I actually don't like that. I can toggle labels that are above it on and off, and I can change the color. So it's all very configurable. It's really nice because as you work with it, you get to see the results immediately. Overall, this is a planning tool that can be used by our staff to kind of figure out where the gulls are hanging out in our watersheds, and it can kind of help prepare the bird harassment programs accordingly. So, you know, there's a lot of birds in Worcester right now, so maybe the Wachusett Reservoir is going to see an increased number of birds hanging out in the roost. But that is about all I've got for you guys. If anybody has questions, I would be happy to take those now.
If anyone has questions, please put them in the chat. Erica, one thing that I was wondering is, does different projects within DCR have a similar dashboard for their particular surveys, or is this particular to just the gull harassment?
Great question. So we've been using Arcgis Online for about 3 years now, since late 2017. And when we first got started, we mostly were taking our paper-based workflows and transitioning them to Collector or Survey 123, which is Esri's other form-based field data collection app. And at that point, I didn't really have a big focus on dashboarding. I wasn't really familiar with them. I didn't really know what they could do. Within the past year, I have finally started to explore them a little bit more, and we've expanded them to many of our projects, and we're still building them now. And the way it kind of works in DCR, and I'm sure other industries are the same way, is people see the fancy and shiny new thing that somebody else is using, and then they want one too. So that's kind of how our rollout of dashboards and field workflows have been going. So we're still building them, and it's definitely not unique to this project.
Awesome. I'm not seeing anything in the chat, but if anyone has, oh, there's one. So is there available data showing bird population movements in Southborough or the Southborough area?
I mean, I could show, let's see, zoom out. So this is kind of the Southborough area, right? No, that's not. I'm gonna go way over here. Not even close. There we go.
Yeah, probably right where it said Corderville.
Yeah, so we've got a few surveys in this area. My computer is really slow right now, so my points aren't loading yet. But this is kind of what you could expect. There we go. So again, we've got one goal here. This is Framingham, Reservoir 3. We got here, this is Westboro, so that's a little past you guys. 15 goals there. Here, this is Marlboro, 17. So not a ton of observations in Southborough itself at this point.
Do you know if there's, I guess the follow-up question was not just for gulls, but if there are surveys for a variety of other birds that DCR might be looking at?
I am not aware of water supply biologists tracking other birds. Right now, I mean, we're primarily interested in gulls because they have a direct negative impact on the water quality in the reservoirs. I do know that they do bird surveys in the spring, but those are primarily on our properties in the Quabbin, the White River, and the Wachusett watersheds.
Okay, thank you for that. Not seeing any other comments in the chat, but if you guys have anything after that you think of, feel free to send me an email. And Erica's email is also on the screen, or I'm happy to, be the in-between if there's something that I can help with as well. Unless Erica, there's anything else you want to add, I think we are pretty much done for today. And thank you, Erica, and everyone who attended. As a reminder, we have one more session tomorrow at 10 a.m. So feel free to join and register if you haven't already. And a huge thank you to all of the presenters who have been here for GIS Day, especially DCR for taking the time out of your day to do this. So I really appreciate it. And I know that a lot of people who couldn't be here today are interested in this one in particular, being the recording of it. So thank you again, and this will be a great resource to look back on. I know I learned a lot, so thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, well, have a good night, everyone.